Australia's energy policy landscape today almost seems to be driven by ideology and domestic concerns, he said. This gives us great cause for concern. The potential consequences of hasty introduction of new policies are significant, he said. On the geopolitical front, there are potentially very sinister consequences for Australia's quietizing its LNG business, he said. Direct threat, the question of who will replace the Australian supply is front and centre. Worryingly, that inconvenient truth is most likely Russia, China, and Iran filling the void. I hope this point is clear all of you and you appreciate that this outcome poses a direct threat to rules-based international order, essential peace, stability, and prosperity of region, if not world. Mr. Ueda's audience included Jan Adams, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ms. King, Secretary of Commerce Don Farrell, as well as heads Australian Industry Group, Australian Mines Council, and gas lobby APPEA. Don't let Tokyo's neon lights go out. Mr. Ueda's speech came as the company celebrated its 500th LNG cargo from the firm's port of Darwin, which saw a groundbreaking ceremony led by former Prime Minister Julia Gillard when construction began in 2012. It would be helpful for Australian business leaders to talk about this openly, said a coalition source attending the event. Another attendee, Shadow Resources Minister Susan McDonald, called event for this government's extraordinary response to event that global CEO, one of Australia's most important foreign investors, travelled from Tokyo and today at Houses Parliament to voice his concerns that investment climate in Australia is poor, described it as an indictment. Worsening, and the policy environment is now driven by ideology. Pervert Noting Labor's intervention in the shock gas market late last year, as well as protection mechanism reforms this week that raised the bar for future gas exporters, Ueda said new policies were rushed to make climate change worse. Noting that global demand for LNG is growing rapidly, especially in Indo-Pacific region, he said, new policies to mitigate impact of climate change will likely have opposite result, in opposite direction. Australia competes for global investment, and the changes we are in looking at Australian policy settings will suffocate investment and expansion of LNG projects in this country. As a result, the growing energy demand of the region will be met by coal, not natural gas. The result will be much higher global greenhouse gas emissions, making net zero an impossible task by 2050. Mr. Ueda also made it clear that Inpex is committed to investing in both green and blue hydrogen. Some ideologues insist that only green hydrogen, that is, hydrogen produced from water using renewable energy, is acceptable. We have a more pragmatic view, he said. Developing blue hydrogen will likely be more economical and therefore more competitive in the market. This is another example where we shouldn't let perfect stand in the way of good. The containment mechanism deal with the Greens this week included a commitment, nearly double industry assistance affected heavy emitters from $600 million to $400 million, none of which would go CCS. For whatever reason, the Australian government seems hesitant to lean into CCS projects, he said. This is in stark contrast to many other nations. Failure to facilitate CCS also threatens this country's desire to become a clean energy superpower, sacrificing related jobs, investment, and income. Mr. Ueda noted that the protection mechanism passed by Parliament on Thursday would require all new gas fields connected to existing LNG facilities to be net zero on the first day. CCS is effectively becoming mandatory for all new oil and gas projects in Australia. This result clearly underlines the critical importance of carbon capture and storage. Mr. Ueda welcomed Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's support for gas export industry, while urging him to find the political courage to turn Prime Minister's rhetorical support for gas into actions.